The choices, the remote, the shippening, the copycats, or the unforgettable the origins. You know, when people talk about the amazing world of Gumball, the same legendary episodes always come up. But here's the truth. Buried underneath the fan favorites are some absolute gems, episodes that never really got the spotlight they deserve. These underrated classics showcase Gumball at its weirdest, funniest, and sometimes even its most heartfelt. So buckle up, because I'm counting down the most underrated episodes of the amazing world of Gumball. The ones that flew under the radar, but prove just how genius this show really is.
Dagnabbit! We'll never get rid of them!
Stay tuned, because I guarantee you'll discover at least one episode you never gave enough credit to. Let's be real, Gumball is one of the most creative cartoons ever made. The mix of animation styles, surreal humor, and clever social commentary is unmatched. But here's the catch. Some episodes get overshadowed because they don't have big lore reveals or shocking endings. Instead, they slip by as just another funny episode. And yet, those are the episodes that highlight what makes Gumball so special. The character chemistry, the absurdity, the way everyday situations spiral into full-blown chaos. So in this video, we're going to dig through the forgotten pile and pull out episodes that deserve more love.
You can scream as much as you like, but nothing.
The Fridge, Season 1, Episode 11. Kicking things off, we have The Fridge. This episode is pure Season 1 charm. The Wattersons discover a trophy Darwin and Gumball accidentally won as kids, and suddenly the family spirals into a competition to prove they're still winners. Why is it underrated? Because it perfectly nails early Gumball's tone. The humor here isn't just random, it's about how insecure the Wattersons really are. Nicole turns competitive. Richard, as usual, takes things way too far. And Gumball and Darwin? They just sit back and watch the chaos unfold. It's not the most talked about episode, but it's a blueprint for what Gumball would later become. A family sitcom that cranks everyday issues into total madness. And honestly, the ending, where the Wattersons win in the most ridiculous way possible, is the kind of anti-climax humor Gumball thrives on. If you skip this one, go back. It deserves way more love.
What does a winner do when life gives him lemons?
Make lemonade?
No.
The Painting, Season 2, Episode 20. This one's a visual masterpiece. Miss Simeon forces Gumball and Darwin to paint a family portrait, and the results? Absolutely wild. Instead of just drawing, the boys experiment with surrealism, symbolism, and even dark abstract art. The episode becomes a commentary on art itself, what counts as good, and who gets to decide. It's underrated because most fans remember the loud comedy episodes, but The Painting is one of the show's smartest. The visual gags are brilliant. Nicole drawn as a monster, Richard as a blob, Anais as some godlike overlord. And the payoff? Miss Simeon completely missed the point. This episode is like a hidden love letter to creativity, and how subjective art really is.
Kids, please.
When I look at this painting...
The Tape, Season 2, Episode 33. Ever wondered what home videos look like in the Watterson household? The Tape answers that. The entire episode is framed as a found footage reel of the Wattersons' family life. And what we see is chaotic, hilarious, and weirdly wholesome. What makes this underrated is how experimental it is. Instead of the usual setup punchline structure, it's cut together like an old VHS tape full of random clips. The editing is sloppy on purpose, and it feels authentic, like you're actually watching a real family's embarrassing home videos. And the comedy? Next level. From Richard's clueless parenting moments to Anais acting like the most mature person in the room, it's peak Watterson energy. People rarely mention The Tape, but it's one of the most unique formats Gumball ever pulled off.
Tell him where it is!
Where did you
Tell
put it?
him
Where did you put it? Where did you put it? Chill, everybody!
The Flower, Season 2, Episode 17. Here's one almost nobody talks about. The Flower. Gumball becomes obsessed with Leslie, the delicate flower character, and spirals into jealousy when he thinks Leslie is more popular or cooler than him. Sounds simple, right? But the way this episode visualizes Gumball's paranoia is genius. His imagination runs wild, turning Leslie into a glamorous figure stealing his spotlight. Why underrated? Because it digs deep into Gumball's insecurity. This isn't just a silly rivalry, it's about identity, self-worth, and how jealousy can make you see enemies where there aren't any. It's also filled with surreal visuals, like Gumball's jealousy dream sequences that feel straight out of a psychological comedy. Definitely deserves more attention for how it mixes comedy with relatable emotions.
Me! You need to
in-your-face CO2 breathing, self-pollinating, photosynthesizing, soil-eating, root-drinking, deciduous, pedal-headed punk!
The Void, Season 3, Episode 29. Okay, hear me out. The Void is talked about, but not nearly enough compared to how important it actually is. This episode literally introduces the idea of a cosmic glitch world, where forgotten characters and plot holes go to die. That's huge! And yet, most fans only bring up the origins or the copycats when talking about big lore episodes, but The Void deserves way more credit. It's not just cool, it's creepy. The surreal visuals of lost characters floating in nothingness, the idea that the universe itself erases things it doesn't want, it's one of Gumball's darkest concepts. Plus, this episode opened the door for later meta-commentary in the series. Without The Void, we might never have gotten those insane fourth wall breaks in Season 6. Definitely underrated in terms of legacy. Gumballers, here is that time to show some love, smash the subscribe button, and like the video. Now, back to it.
Okay, Molly, we just have to get back through that big hole and we're home. You mean that hole over there?
The Refund, Season 1, Episode 18. This one is pure comedy gold. Gumball and Darwin try to return a rented video game, but Larry refuses because they're a day late. What follows? An over-the-top action movie parody where the boys attempt to outsmart the system. It's underrated because it's such a perfect parody. The entire episode plays out like a heist thriller, slow-motion shots, dramatic monologues, insane chase scenes, all over something as tiny as a late fee. This is Gumball at its best, taking a mundane problem and cranking it up to absurd levels. The Refund never gets mentioned in top 10 lists, but it absolutely deserves a spot.
Otherwise, we'll put the security video online. What do you think the internet will say when it sees you slapping your customers with your little hand?
The Shell, Season 3, Episode 20. Now this one might actually break your heart. Penny reveals her true form in this episode, breaking out of her literal shell, and it becomes a metaphor for identity and self-expression. Why underrated? Because it's overshadowed by flashier, lore-heavy episodes. But The Shell is one of the most emotional stories in the series. It's about being yourself, even when others don't understand. It's about Gumball realizing he loves Penny for who she is, not the safe version she hides behind. The animation when Penny transforms? Stunning. The dialogue? Surprisingly heartfelt. This episode deserves to be remembered as one of Gumball's most touching, not just another quirky adventure.
You're right! You're right! I'm gonna do it! That's it! Break free, Penny! Hey, here we go! I'm gonna be...
The Job, Season 2, Episode 5. Richard actually gets a job. And the result? Absolute chaos. For most of the series, Richard is painted as the ultimate lazy dad, sitting on the couch, eating snacks, and avoiding responsibility at all costs. But this episode flips that on its head. When Richard decides to join the workforce, we finally see what happens when he tries to contribute. And it's both hilarious and catastrophic. The humor comes from how wildly unfit Richard is for any form of employment. Whether it's his lack of focus, his clumsy decisions, or his inability to follow simple instructions, every task spirals out of control. The writers lean into physical comedy and absurd escalation, and Richard ends up turning the simplest jobs into full-blown disasters. But beneath the comedy, The Job gives us something rare, a glimpse into Richard's good intentions. He genuinely wants to help his family and prove he's not just useless. And the sweetest part? The Wattersons actually support him, even when he fails miserably. They don't love him because he earns money, they love him because he's their dad, and that's enough. This mix of slapstick chaos and genuine heart is what makes The Job such an underrated gem. It's easy to overlook compared to the bigger, lore-heavy episodes, but this one reminds us that even Richard, the goofiest Watterson of all, can carry an episode with humor, charm, and surprising depth.
I gotta say, Dad, I never thought you were gonna get a job.
Neither did I.
The Bus, Season 3, Episode 31. So, here's the setup. Gumball and Darwin accidentally push their school bus driver over the edge, and she just straight up quits. No warning, no second chance, she's done. And of course, the moment she leaves, everything starts falling apart. Now, on the surface, the bus feels like one of those small day-in-the-life episodes. But honestly, it's one of the best examples of how much chaos follows the Watterson brothers wherever they go. All they needed was a ride to school, right? But with no driver behind the wheel, the whole trip turns into a disaster movie on wheels. What I love about this episode is the pacing. It starts small, just two kids accidentally upsetting their driver, but then boom, it snowballs. Suddenly you've got kids arguing, the bus running wild, and the entire ride feeling like some kind of survival challenge. Every attempt to solve the problem just cranks up the madness. Classic Gumball energy. And that's why this episode is underrated. It doesn't rely on big lore, huge reveals, or emotional twists. It's just a simple school bus story told in the most over-the-top, hilarious way possible. The timing of the jokes, the ridiculous escalation, the way the situation completely unravels, it's peak Gumball chaos. Most fans barely mention the bus when talking about great episodes, but honestly, it deserves way more love. It's proof that even the smaller episodes can stand out as some of the funniest. If you ever skipped over this one on a rewatch, go back. You'll be surprised how good it really is.
Don't I get to... Oh.
See, I told you, it's a load of hooey!
The Kids, Season 4, Episode 1. And finally, we've got The Kids. Now, this one is hilarious because it shows Gumball and Darwin going through that awkward stage of life we all dread, puberty. Well, Gumball-style puberty. Their voices start cracking out of nowhere, their bodies don't seem to work right, and everything suddenly feels confusing and embarrassing. It's the kind of episode that makes you laugh while also making you say, "Yep, I've been there." The way their voices crack at the worst possible moments, painfully accurate. The way they try to act grown up but fail miserably. Even funnier. It's silly, it's awkward, and honestly, it's totally relatable. Why is this episode underrated? Because when people think of Season 4, they jump straight to the big ones like The Disaster or The Choices. And don't get me wrong, those are classics. But The Kids deserves credit for being one of the funniest, most down-to-earth episodes in the entire series. What makes it so good is that it doesn't need giant lore reveals or emotional drama. It's just Gumball and Darwin trying to survive one of the most universal human experiences, growing up, and of course, turning it into absolute chaos. The comedy comes from how real it feels, exaggerated through the weird, wacky lens of Elmore. This episode reminds you that Gumball isn't just about surreal humor and fourth wall breaks. Sometimes it's about taking something every kid goes through and blowing it up into the funniest, most awkward adventure possible. The Kids may not make it onto every best of list, but it's proof that Gumball could nail comedy that hits close to home. And that's exactly why it deserves way more love.
I would have gone for something more like
So there you have it, 10 of the most underrated episodes of the amazing world of Gumball. From early gems like the Fridge and the Refund, to emotional hits like the Shell, and even lore-heavy brilliance like the Void. These episodes prove Gumball's genius goes way beyond the famous ones we always talk about. The beauty of this show is that even its so-called filler episodes are packed with creativity, humor, and heart. So next time you're rewatching, give these underrated episodes another shot. You might just realize they're some of the best the series ever offered. Gumballers, let me know in the comment below which underrated Gumball episode is your favorite. Did I miss one that you think deserves more attention? Drop it in the comment. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe for more Gumball deep dives, and share this video with your fellow Gumballers. Until next time, stay jiggy, stay gumballing,